Welcome to Bledsoe Said So. We have an exciting guest tonight. Mr. Jeff Harman met my dad in, I believe it was March, in Pasadena, California at Alien Con, where he was doing his first book signing, and they hit it off. They became friends. Dad went on Jeff's show. Jeff, please, if you wouldn't mind sharing the name of your show.
It is just Jeff Harman, Astrologer, Jeff Harman, Vedic Astrology on the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Awesome. And Dad really had a wonderful experience. He was really taken aback by Jeff's just kind demeanor and his incredible knowledge of astrology. And here we are. So, Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So it's good to be on.
Yeah, it's good to have you.
So, yeah, your dad's a great guy. I really enjoyed him.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. We really like astrology on the show, and I'm always excited to just learn as much as I can because in my experience, it's a very fascinating but very deep and complex, I guess you could say, spiritual science. So, I mean,
yeah, I feel like with astrology, the more I learn, the less I know.
Exactly.
Me too.
Really?
Me too.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
I'm glad I'm not alone.
It's stunning. I mean, my first brush with astrology was back in the 70s. My mother was pegging my girlfriends. And, you know, I grew up in northern Wisconsin. It's kind of like Dukes of Hazzard up there. You know, it's nothing but semis, you know, horses, snowmobiles, motorcycles. And
kind of like the South.
Yeah, like. yeah. You feel like you're living in that movie White Lightning, you know. It's or Deliverance, you know. It's really
Deliverance.
Yeah, it's kind of like Deliverance. Yeah, but what was fun is she started pegging my girlfriends to the T as I started driving in the mid '70s, and she was just right on. I said, "Come on, this stuff doesn't work," you know. And she said, "Well, you know, you better check it out before you knock it." And I did, and to my amazement, you know, I was really into science and, you know, all that kind of stuff and hard, you know, evidence of things. And the more I looked at it, I went, wow, this is really not only an interesting ancient science, but it's also, I think, something that really shows that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. We're not just our astrology. And then when I started really getting into what we call classical and traditional astrology, which really started, I think, to end around the late 1600s. By the 1700s, there was a lot of religious suppression. There was a lot of, you know, demonizing of astrology, particularly from that time forward, late 1600s, early 1700s forward. But prior to that, that's called classical or traditional astrology. It's kind of been dubbed that name. And that goes all the way back to Egypt, Chaldea, the Holy Land, and most importantly, the far Middle East. Of course, you have Chinese astrology, but you also have the Vedic and the Nadi astrology out of ancient India, which is stunning. Absolutely stunning stuff. Just blow your hair back. It's like totally different than modern astrology in terms of the way it looks at what astrology is and what it isn't. So it's really captured, you know, my attention, and it's been a journey. And like you guys say, the more you learn, the more you realize how divine it is and how we'll never fully figure it out using this state of consciousness. I don't think human intelligence is great enough using the five senses like we do to fully grasp the divinity and breadth and scope of what astrology truly is. It's clearly a matrix. I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus. This might be the real matrix of soul, you know? So,
yeah, absolutely.
You're definitely on the right show. I mean, what episode 2 was the Matrix? Like
I think it's 3.
Yeah. We dropped those references a lot. You actually got right into something that I was going to ask about, which is like kind of the history of astrology and the ways that it's changed or evolved over the years. And you mentioned the difference between your modern astrology and your, you called it classical or traditional astrology.
Right.
And so it sounds like they look a little bit different, that they look through a different scope. But what exactly does that mean? How does it, in what ways is it different from how we see astrology today?
Well, a lot of ways. Today, we hear a lot about the big three. Everyone absolutely knows their sun sign. That's the first thing out of everyone's mouth is, I'm a Pisces, I'm an Aries, I'm a this.
Right.
Then, of course, that's known as sun sign astrology, which really kind of got popularized in the 60s. Linda Goodman is probably one of the astrologers who really pushed that whole thing. And it worked very well from a commercial standpoint because it sold a lot of books. And I think people could relate to it because it was simple. But when you go back to, and there's really no definitive time period, because it's interesting, astrology seems to show up throughout ancient history everywhere. There's proof of it not only in texts and codexes, which only certain ones are extant, but you start looking at like Chaco Canyon. The Indians were building things that lined up with the solstices and equinoxes. We see things in Egypt. We see Stonehenge. We see, all kinds of temples and things built to different astrological symbolisms,
Like Chichen Itza, too. Chichen Itza, I think it's the Mayan pyramid in Mexico, right?
That's
one
right.
of the wonders of the world. With the it's either the spring equinox or the winter solstice, where on that day the precise angle of the sun, it creates an illusion of a massive serpent, but it's purely cast out of shadows that's like slithering up the pyramid.
It's like Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom. Literally, it's all these alignments. And it's the solstices and equinoctial points, which, equinox is a Latin term that just means days and nights are equal. And of course, we are coming up on that right next week, the fall equinox.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And the fall equinox is a big deal because, with the fall equinox, and we're right around the corner from it here.
Like a couple days.
Yeah, a couple days away. And those were known as extremely important points. There's a text, talk about going back here. There's a text called the Sefer Ratziel, which in Hebrew and Aramaic, Sefer means book, and Ratziel means the archangel Ratziel. Well, what's fascinating about that whole topic is the legend is, and this gets really into some religious connotations, because when you look at the religions demonized astrology, and yet the ancient history of it was when Adam fell into the physical realms, which of course we have the Garden of Eden story, right? But actually was incarnated into a physical realm and body. He was so distraught that he was trying to commit suicide. And the legend is that this angel, Ratziel, which is the archangel on the tree of life of Hokmah. Hokmah, if anyone's familiar with the tree of life, is a Hebrew Aramaic word that means wisdom. And so Ratziel is the archangel of that sphere, if you will, or Sephiroth is what they call him on the tree of life. And he brought him this book called the Book of Ratziel, which is the Sefer Ratziel. And it'll blow your hair back because it talks about how at the equinoxes and the solstice points, all these angels would change, shift, myriads upon myriads of angels. And, science today, our modern world, listens to this stuff and they go, yeah. They want to hear about atoms and molecules and things they could plug meters into and measure, right? And mathematically calculate. And they got to be able to put a model on it and prove it for themselves. But really, this is what attracted me to the ancient systems of astrology, because they weren't just looking at signs and planets, and they certainly weren't looking at just sun signs. They were looking at what is astrology. And it's really the modulation of the heavens down into creation. And this goes down the rabbit hole pretty deep, because I believe the earth, and this is exactly the premise behind ancient Vedic and Nadi astrology, which is the earth is where spirit manifests. You think about that one. Yeah. So, this is like a soul cauldron. And the eastern horizon in everyone's birth chart is always referred to as the ascendant, you see? So that's what's ascending. And it's always ascending every day. And even if you're a flat earther, we still have the eastern horizon shifting, right? So, because you got to allow for that one too.
Oh, yeah.
So the bottom line is, no matter what you believe, one thing's for sure, is the eastern horizon is always changing in relationship to the celestial mechanics of the sun and everything else up there. And the accuracy of this is stunning. A guy that we're going to interview pretty soon, hopefully, is Robert Hand. He, back in the 70s, was involved, late 70s, involved in the development of early astrology computer programs, he and a number of other people. And they were consulting with NASA on what they called the ephemeruses. These are the inner mechanics inside of the computer programs that plots where all the fixed stars are and where all the planets are, and of course the rotation of the Earth. So, and it's so accurate, it's amazing. I mean, the celestial influences of our solar system, they're not like kind of accurate, they're like precise to the millisecond. And this is why you take a culture like, you know, we're talking about all these different, you know, monoliths and complex astrological sites that were created by the ancients. They literally could line up these rock formations and cause shadows or beams of light to reflect because it's that precise. And what many of the ancients knew too, and they were really smart, and I believe this is where extraterrestrials come in. I really believe we have, this might be a lot more like Men in Black here than we know, because clearly it's coming out. You know, the news is full of all kinds of information that's coming out. I think Jesse Waters just had something out where the doctors were proving that some of the extraterrestrial mummies that they had brought forward were absolutely real. They're not fake, and that they were truly from, you know, life forms. That this isn't some, you know, paper mache somebody put together, that it was really, you know, a living being, and it wasn't human. So, and I know myself, and I know you guys know about this stuff, but growing up in northern Wisconsin, and even out here in the West where I'm at, I have seen so much paranormal combined with extraterrestrial, in my opinion, stuff it's unbelievable. In fact, I just saw two craft the other night, just recently.
Really?
Yeah. I was out in Malibu, and interesting, I don't know if you guys know about this, you probably do, but in Malibu, in between Point Magoo, which is right south of Oxnard, and of course there's a military base just north of there, right? And right where Zuma Beach, it's actually Point Doom is what they call it. That's where Baywatch and all kinds of movies have been filmed in this very famous beach called Zuma Beach, and also the Point Doom. And about, I think it's somewhere between 4 and 6 miles out, don't quote me exactly, there's this huge underwater structure that has all these pillars, and you can see it from satellite. And there's craft coming in and out of there like crazy. And the word is, it's been doing that for a long, long time. I've spoken to guys in the military, and they, you know, they won't say too much, but they say we're tracking this stuff, and the propagation speeds are so fast, it's almost immeasurable that they can come out of that water and go outside of our atmosphere. So this is very high-tech stuff. And I actually taught a class back in the 80s at a college. And one of the students was sitting in the audience, and we were talking about, I don't know how we got on the subject, but he said, oh yeah, my dad's an admiral. And he says, they say we take submarines underneath the California coast almost all the way to Salt Lake City. So how about that? Nothing to worry about, folks. Just your local military involved, quite possibly, with stuff that we haven't known about, have been told. But I think the government has been reverse engineering stuff for a long time. I mean, of course, we know about Roswell and Lieutenant Philip Corso and all that whole story. Of course, that was swamp gas from Venus, folks. Look over here. But in all seriousness, clearly, there's overwhelming evidence on this planet that they were really aware of the celestial influences. And I believe angels and extraterrestrials has been a huge factor, you know, bringing this back to astrology, in how the ancients knew as much as they knew about astrology. The Egyptian astrology, the Hellenistic astrology, and a lot of scholars, you know, they all theorize about, well, it came out of, you know, Greece, or it came out of Egypt, or it came out of Chaldea or Babylonia. No one knows. I don't know, but I'm
here to say I'm Greek, so it came from Greece.
There you go.
I'm just gonna. When you said Hellenistic, I was like, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly what we find is maybe these cultures were sophisticated enough to have the ability, because you got to remember, prior to the 1500s, we didn't have printing presses, you know, to write something down. You were talking papyrus.
Oh, yeah.
And most people, not only did they not know their birth times, most people didn't know how to write. So you had to have.
Point. I never thought about that. You have to have your precise birth time. So that's crazy. I never thought about it, because how do they, you know, they don't keep record of that stuff back then.
Well, they did. Actually, they had astrolabes. They had different types of clocks. There was all kinds of ways of timekeeping pieces, and one of them was an astrolabe. They're really cool devices. I think I got one.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah. Check this out. This is pretty cool. This is an actual authentic astrolabe. Let me see if I can get it out of here.
Wow, we're getting a special treat today. Y'all got to come over to YouTube and check out the video so you can see what
this is an astrolabe. See what it looks like? Yeah. And this is really a complex device. You would rotate this in order to adjust to the time of day. And then notice on the back, it's got all kinds of, you know, measurement tools, etc. But what this allowed you to do was plot where the celestial planets were. This is a very sophisticated device. This was purported to have been used by Christopher Columbus and many navigators, because it also was a navigation tool. You know, they use fixed stars. You know? So really cool stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't usually think about that a whole lot, but out there on the ocean, they're tracking the stars. It's not just something that just comes to mind, you know?
Right, because we don't have to, you know, in modern times, we don't have to do that, so we don't think about it.
GPS,
that was their GPS was just like, look up in the sky. Okay, there's that star. Like, that means we got to go this way. Like that's
a fascinating thought. You know,
they were elegant navigators.
Yeah,
and you know,
they had no choice.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting.
But the truth is we just don't have the same. We don't have to do that. Like, it's not that we're less smart than we used to be. It's that, you know, we have a GPS.
Oh, yeah. And that's only been cool for maybe the last 15, 20 years, you know, in the public, at least in the public. You know, even 20 years ago, GPS wasn't that prevalent. It was there for sure. The military's had it a long time. Right. But and I mean, the iPhone and droids, those really, I don't think it's been much more than maybe 12 years.
Not long. I was in high school 13 years ago, and nobody really had iPhones much. Only like the rich kids. So
that's it.
Yeah. Well, can I get an Astrolabe app on my phone, or
maybe? I don't know. That's a good question.
That'd be really cool, honestly. Just last thing I'll say about the Astrolabe, because I've played a lot of like fantasy type video games. Obviously Nick has too, and I've seen an astrolabe in them.
Yeah, aren't they cool? Look at that. It almost looks like, you know, something out of Gotham City or something, you know?
Right. Or Elder Scrolls or something.
It's incredible.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And there's different size ones too, and then you could put different plates in for different latitudes. As you change latitude, north, south, east, and west, and of course longitude, you would put different plates in. So really interesting stuff. And it also tells you how advanced they were in terms of knowing about coordinates and positions. You know, when you really think about all that, it was a lot. I'm actually amazed. I think the coffee or the food or the air or something was better back a long time ago, because these people did not have computers. They didn't have slide rules. And some of the mathematical computations they were doing on the angularity of the Earth, as well as the way the planets would ascend and descend, was really sophisticated. I do not believe that they figured this stuff out completely on their own.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. That's way too complex, especially the Vedic astrology. Some of this stuff is beyond what anyone would come up with, in my opinion, at least, on their own. They just wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I really believe we've got time travelers, we've got angelic forces, and we got written proof of it. The Sefer Ratziel may be one of the older texts extant, and God only knows how old it is. I mean, Psalm 91 in the Bible, they claim could be 4,000 plus years old, and nobody knows 100%. Wow. I don't know. And you think about that, that's pretty old. You know,
that really piqued my interest when you brought up the what's it, the Sefer Ratziel? I haven't heard of that one. I've read the Sefer Yetzirah, which is like
Yetzirah, right?
Yeah,
The
just like a
Yetzirah is the
mainline
book of
Kabbalah text.
formation, right?
Right. I've read that one. I've read a couple others that I can't remember by name. We just talked about one of the Sephirs on a Metatron episode that should be out by now, but
Yeah.
I'm very excited to dive into the Sefer Ratziel. Actually, admittedly, because is this a Kabbalistic text, the Sefer Ratziel?
It's referred to as that, but I think it's much older than that. You know,
Right.
I don't want to demean the word Kabbalah, you know, but today you have to say Kabbalah, right? Because the Kabbalah centers, I actually knew Rav Berg. He was quite an amazing man. He just passed away a while back, and his sons, Yehuda, run the Kabbalah centers in New York, of course, here and other places. So it's good stuff. But the Kabbalah is kind of a pop term, in my opinion.
Right,
it's just ancient sacred knowledge.
Well, it's like horoscope there's a pop version of it, but you know, the core of it is a lot more ancient, a lot more. The older I get and the more we study this kind of esoteric material from all cultures, I'm starting to realize that there's wisdom in all of them. You know, so admittedly, actually, pretty soon we're gonna do a Kabbalah episode. But anyway, that's off topic. You really got my interest with the Sefer Ratziel. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, it's an amazing. Well, there's different versions of it. There's several translations, and I have not all of them, but quite a few of them. And the older ones, that's very interesting because it talks about the spiritual cleansing of the soul and this knowledge of how the angels actually are very much interested in humanity's, you could say, purity, or you could say reverence to creation. It's very interesting stuff because I talked about this on a podcast not too long ago. There's actually a text called the Book of Abramelin that mentions this, how the guardian angel will actually appear. And talk about the equinoxes. From the spring equinox to the fall equinox, there's 6 lunations, also known as new moons. And that the 6th lunation, if the soul is truly purified, the angel will appear and teach one really amazing secrets about how to control the evil spirits, also how to, this whole mechanics of this place works. You know, and this is an interesting point here. Because, you know, this goes back to, you know, when my mother got me into this stuff in the 70s, I was really into electronics and music and science and all this stuff. And
back then it was booming. It was just taking off. I'm sure it was huge back then.
Yeah, it was. But what caught my eye was when I came along and you know, I'm like, well, wait a minute. This stuff is a bunch of woo-woo stuff, you know, sun signs and astrology and all this. And I'm like, come on, this stuff can't be real. And when I started looking at the way and the sophistication of, it's really just celestial geometry. And see, that's the difference between modern astrology. We were kind of touching on that before. Modern astrologers clearly use some good tools, but if you go back and you look at the traditional stuff, there's what we call the Egyptian and Chaldean essential dignities. They have all these exceedingly complex divisions of the signs in the zodiac. And see, this gets into Exodus in the Bible, where, you know, there's 72 angels called the Shem Hemaforish. That is, of course, everybody in the Kabbalah now is into this, but this is very, very ancient. And they say it rules the firmament. And this gets touched upon in the Psalms, the wings of the wind, you see. And we hear these references. He flew in on the wings of the wind. And these are all angelic forces that nobody believes exist anymore. But boy, do they ever.
Yeah,
and
they do.
Oh, yeah. A powerful, powerful stuff. And there's actually, in the ancient astrology, you can come up with the name of your guardian angel from your birth chart. And I covered this on Gems for people. Yeah, you take the Eastern horizon. And see, this is really interesting about the Eastern. The Egyptians made a big deal out of sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight. And you'll find many of your secret societies, they always hail those points and the equinoxes and the solstical points. So very, very interesting stuff. And what's interesting is in Nadi astrology and in Vedic astrology, they call the Eastern horizon Lagna. That's a strange word that in Sanskrit that means the Eastern horizon. And it's believed the guardian angel attaches your spirit, psyche, and soul to the embryo at conception, not at birth, by silver cord. And then when you exit the womb, all children usually let out a cry, not always, but usually. And they say that's when that angel permanently ties the spirit, psyche, and soul to the body at first breath. And breath is synonymous with spirit. And any doctor will tell you, you stop breathing, try holding your breath for a half an hour. Don't work too well.
It's like, what's the term in Hinduism? Is it Atman or prana? Prana,
right?
The breath of life. Yeah, the pranic energy. Yeah. Atman, I think, is your soul, right?
That's right. The Atma Karaka, right? That's right. And see, they look. That's what's cool. You start getting into Nadi astrology. That blew my hair back. Nadi astrology. I know the Western scholars kind of scoff at this, but there's evidence. It is probably dating back to at least 3,700 to 4,000 BC.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So when you say Nadi astrology, what country of origin was this?
Well, it's same in India.
It's different from Vedic, though?
It's a branch of it.
Okay.
See, there's many branches of Vedic astrology. Vedic astrology is kind of a pop term too. Actually, a friend of mine who just passed away, Chakrapani, might have been the guy who coined that phrase back in the 60s. He said Americans are never going to know what Jyotisha means, so he said we'll call it Vedic astrology. See, but originally it was called Jyotisha. That's a strange word that means the science of the light of the soul.
Oh,
and
I love that.
Yeah, it really is. And, now you're not just dealing with astrology, you're dealing with a whole, you could say, array of why are we here? And this parallels very close to the Western religious journey of we were all spirits and souls, and then we incarnated into this physical realm. And I think there's a lot of them besides just Earth. And that's the equations the religions won't even touch. And our fine bearded men in Rome, the ones murdering each other for the first 300 years to decide what Christians might get to believe, basically threw a lot of these documents in the bottom of the Vatican. And they omitted so many texts, like the keys, or not, but the books of Enoch, the books of Thomas, and so many others. And also a lot of Hebraic texts were not put in there. So you had this division between Judaism and Christianity that probably never should have happened, because there's so much wealth of spiritual knowledge there that it's really
we just covered third Enoch pretty extensively on that same episode I was telling you about. I remember the text now. We covered third Enoch, which was like one of the Merkaba mystic texts, I suppose. And we covered the Shir Kuma, which was I don't remember what it translates to, but it was this crazy mystical text. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, cool stuff.
Super cool.
You bet, man. And then you now that's all interwoven with the Zohar and the Shulchan.
I've read that one too. I've read the Zohar.
Yep. And and then there's the Nefesh Hasitzim, there's the Shari Hagilgam. A lot of this stuff came from Rabbi Chaim Vital, who was the student of the Ari. He was Rabbi. They called him the Arizal. He was believed to be a rabbi who was born blind. And there's many others, Rabbi Abulafia. You just keep going farther back, and the knowledge just never stops. And again, this all comes down to, we're in the West here grabbing documents and say, here it is, here it is, the holy answer. And a lot of this knowledge was verbally transmitted. It wasn't written down
for aeons before it was written down.
And
literally,
here's another one that's kind of interesting. They say that writing started showing up somewhere around 3,700 BC to 4,000 BC. They're not sure. And that's best guesstimates. There's so many documents in the Madras Library in India. Nobody knows how to translate them. They can't figure it out because they don't know where they came from. And we make a big deal out of the Voyer document. I just got it in the room the other day, another copy. The Volnik. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's an untranslatable document that everyone thinks is real. And it's got all this alchemy and stuff in it. And it's very coded language. And you get into all this old stuff. Much of it was encrypted in various different encryptions and ciphers. And see, this is where you start getting into gematria, Notricon, and Akbeaker, and all these secret angelic languages. Really wild stuff. And and again, it seems to have been transmitted by angels and quite possibly other beings from other realms.
You mentioned something a little earlier that I wanted to follow up on. Was it, you said it's Vedic astrology is what it's called, right?
Yeah,
was that
one branch.
Was that the branch that you mentioned you could calculate the name of your guardian angel?
You can do it from any one of them. If you have,
how is that? How do you do that? That's so interesting to me.
Well, it's different for every language. I don't know how to do it, and I haven't seen anything definitive how to do it because I think it's been lost. And any other language other than Aramaic and Hebrew, that I can do it in. And what you do is you calculate from the exact degree ascending on the eastern horizon. And if you go in a counterclockwise fashion, so I do this all the time on gems for people, and you will find wherever your inner 7 planets drops in that degree, you take that letter. See, there's only 22 letters in Aramaic and Hebrew, so you have to keep repeating them. See, so it's like a constant repetitive repetition around the 360 degrees of a circle, which is the zodiac. And then what you do is you take that letter of that planet and you put them in what we call a essential and accidental dignity hierarchy. So in other words, which letter goes first and last is dependent on its strength and dignity within the structure of the Egyptian dignities or Chaldean dignities. And once you have that, you add Aleph Lamed to it, which means L. See, if you look at Archangel Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, Michael, all end in Aleph Lamed, which is the suffix of L. And you add that to it. So there ends up being 9 letters to these guardian angels, the inner 7 planets plus the 2. And 9 also is a very sacred number because it equals spiritual completion on the physical plane. And then if you go the other way, you'll get your tempter. It's like Animal House. Go ahead, do it. No, don't do it. You can do that. Remember Belushi?
Yeah. That's incredible. I love that you could do that.
I love that you're a movie buff too. That's perfect for our show.
Yeah, you fit right in here.
Yeah, we always quote movies. We do whole episodes on movies. So I have to ask. I mean, it doesn't have to be now on the spot, but just in period or in general. Could you help me find my guardian angel?
Yeah, it takes me about 45 minutes. It's quite a process.
I don't want to trouble you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can't do it now. But I calculate that for people. And then not only do I calculate it, then I arrange it on a CAD program so I can engrave it with lasers on your gemstones, on the plates.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can go to my website, jeffharman.com, and it shows that.
Okay.
And what's more cool is I give you a sheet that explains what astrology's hierarchical orders are in a general sense. And what's interesting is there's numerology called gematria and Notricon that actually corresponds to the Old Testament and the Psalms. And of course, many people in Hebrew will know the Old Testament is called the Torah and the Psalms is called Tehillim. So, and what's interesting is you'll find these numerological numbers of the quantitative total of your guardian angel ends up being the gematria. And there's all kinds of references in the Bible to it. So now you come back to, okay, what the hell is astrology? It's a reality machine.
I feel like I know less after this conversation.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's a reality machine. See, if you look at, there's a wonderful diagram that I have on my website. Not on my website, but on my YouTube channel. Just go to Jeff Harman, Vedic Astrologer, or Astrology, or Astrologer. You'll get it either way. And there's a diagram I love to use. I could put it on the screen if I had screen sharing.
You should. Let's see if we can figure that out.
I think
there's a
present here.
option.
Hang on. This is a really cool diagram. Let me see if I got the. So here's our hard start.
You wanna
Okay,
full
you guys
screen
can
that?
see here on
Okay,
the
we're hard
screen.
started. I like that.
There we go. Let's now we'll do the hard
Yeah.
start back
No,
in. Go ahead,
he
Ryan.
already did it.
Oh, okay, we're good. We're in.
we
We're in.
took a quick break just so that we could refigure this and get a slideshow up. So everybody tune into YouTube. He's going to blow our minds here with these crazy images.
Yeah. So what you see on the screen here is kind of a simplified overview of potentially creation. I'm not here to tell anybody this is the way it is, but this is the way I believe it is. And this is actually quite ancient. Whatever your faith in is God, man in the sky, woman in the sky, whatever you want, creation, etc. It's above all creation. And you can see right here, it's a little hard to see with my cursor. I'm circling way up at the top. Notice the first world that's called absolute. That's a strange word in Aramaic and Hebrew. That means where the divine emanation of souls is believed to be created. There's no astrology up here. There's no Pisces and Aries and, Taurus is here. As much as they'd like them to be, it seems like it's way above that. And notice the first hierarchy are the archangels of the seraphims, the cherubims, and the thrones. These are very powerful and divine angels. They actually say if those three were not chanting the permutations of God's name, the entire universes would cease to exist, and maybe all creation would cease to exist. So they're very elemental and creation. They say there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions in this upper world of absolute. The next world's down, Braya, is where the waters of creation begin to get much more dense. And they say there's many, many vast worlds here in the spiritual realms. And of course, you can see the dominance, virtues, and powers, I believe, to rule this area. And again, there's no astrology up here. This is not like the heavens, at least from my understanding, as we would know it. It's way down here. And this is, of course, the text you were mentioning earlier, the Sefer Yetzirah, right? Yetzirah or Yetzirah, or another way they say it is the Yetziratic worlds are where the rotating galaxies are. This is where we start to see the amino gas clouds and, all the stuff, the black holes and the vast, exceedingly complex matrices of creation. This is where what Yetzirah means. It means formation. This is where the molecules and the atoms and all the organization of creation is believed to be. And they claim, and this is a mind blower, there might be 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions with in each one. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that's way past my little pea brain.
Well, let's acknowledge for a second that, we keep seeing this symbolism of 49. That's 7 times 7.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right, my friend. You got it. And there's 7 holes in your head. There's 7 days of the week, 7 halls of heaven. 7 times 7 is 49. Oh, yeah. Very
7
sacred
rays of
numerology.
light, 7 notes on a scale. It just keeps going. Yeah.
Absolutely.
My hair is blown back, Jeff. My hair is officially blown back.
Yeah, this is cool stuff. Then the last worlds is Asaya. Asaya is a strange word that means the astral planes. And this is also, notice next to it, there's the word action. See, action and astral planes might be synonymous. This is, of course, where you could say, spiritual commixture of spirit, soul, and the more denser realms of elementals all join. And of course, we can see over here the 4th hierarchy. Now, usually you get a guy with a suit, tie, and a microphone telling you about the devil, but it's just a little bit more than that. It's, God bless him or something like that. But it's, Lucifer, Satan, and Belial and Leviathan are believed to be the 4 major cast down angels. And now this gets into starts touching upon not only the Bible, but also the books of Enoch. There was a war in heaven, and these guys were cast down. Of course, we hear about the Anunnaki and the Nephilim and all this other stuff. But they say these 4 were the top ones that were cast down. And then there's 8 beneath that, and there's legions upon legions upon legions beneath that. And a lot of people have speculated about these. My opinion is that they are literally incarcerated at the molecular level of creation down in the lower Yetziratic and Asiatic worlds themselves. This literally, they are forced to be a part of molecular creation. Now, a physicist is going to take a microscope and say, well, I know he's in there somewhere, but they're not going to find it because we're looking at the result of creation. You see, because I believe everything is energy. If you think about any quantum physicist, and of course, all these people out there now are, they're neutrinos and they're, up and down forces on the molecules and the atoms and the neutrinos and the protons and electrons. There's all these sub forces that they're finding, but it's still energy. And it's exceedingly complex, organized energy. And the only difference between the hair on our heads and the dust on these computer screens we're staring at and the air we're breathing is the molecular combinations of molecules and atoms and the exceedingly complex amalgam thereof. And they say these angels are the ones creating this reality. I always say the earth is a reality machine. It's where spirit, I call it the soul cauldron. It's where spirit manifests. So what's interesting and where I'm going with this is, where does this place astrology? Well, Yetzirah is the heavens. It is what astrologers would call astrology. But if you look up here, this whole area up in this area is where souls and all the karmic influences might possibly be. And the heavens are the commixtures and infinitely complex arrangements of where souls get planted into these meat suits called bodies. Mm-hmm. So, when you think about this, this is heavy duty stuff, because we have, AI is the big talk right now. Everything's AI, right? AI this, AI that, it's going to know everything, right? Well, and of course we hear about cloning and we hear about all this exceedingly complex stuff. I think God might have done it better. We're never going to catch up. No matter what we do, AI is going to be a machine, and it'll never be like you are, ensouled with a psyche, spirit, and soul, which brings me to another diagram that is really, really quite interesting.
Real quick, before we move on to a different diagram, if you don't mind, sure. I'm a simple-minded guy, so if you don't mind, I have a quick question. So we see Earth at the bottom of this chart here, and obviously it wouldn't be considered like a fifth hierarchy, but would Earth, like, and I know by this chart, Earth means like, the people, the living beings on it, not the celestial body Earth, because that would be Yetzirah by definition, I'm assuming. The celestial body, but here at the bottom of the chart, Earth, would that be like the fifth hierarchy, for lack of a better term, like humanity?
Yeah, I think it's where spirit manifests. We could call it, however we want to call it. That's why diagrams like this are I think helpful, because us humans, we only think on the 5 sense, 3-dimensional level. I know we can theorize, and mathematics and physics and quantum physics has given us a lot of great tools to do that with. But really, the relatability that I wanted to show you another diagram which kind of relates to that.
Let me show you. Sure. Let's
we'll come back to this, because
I just have to say, Jeff, are you, while you're pulling up the diagram, are you much into Rosicrucianism at all?
Oh yeah, Max Heindel, he was cool. Yeah. All these people. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm into anything that leads to truth. I really am.
Yeah, same. I really get the impression that you are me and Nick in just, I mean, I don't know our age difference, but 20 or 30 years. I feel like you are who we will be.
Oh yeah. Well.
And that is so
true. That's a compliment.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Physical age, it really has nothing to do about it, because I see 80-year-olds who have less consciousness than I see 5-year-olds have.
Sure. And but you have so much wisdom gained over all these decades on us. So that's all I'm saying. You're putting in some work.
You're our North Star. To stick with the astrology theme, you're our North Star. We're gonna, if we continue down this path of pursuit of knowledge, we can strive to one day be as profound and awesome as you are. This is
well,
so cool.
but I'll remind you what we all said earlier. The more I get to know, the less I know, and the more humble I get.
It's true. Right.
You know, I mean, when I'm blessed that I've even been able to do this stuff for. I mean, I'm it's going on 50 years. In 2025, it'll be 50 years since I really started, you know, playing with this stuff.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's been 48 years. So as of this year. So anyways, this is a great diagram. And what I love about this diagram, see this big thick dashed line that I'm kind of surrounding here is what modern psychology might refer to as the conscious mind below here, because I'm just using a box here to demonstrate. And above this could be likened to the so-called subconscious mind. But what's interesting about that is a much better metaphor might be this down here below this thick dash line is the present personality. It's what we think and what we believe right now. Psychology will tell you that, and psychiatry will too, that everything, just like Pink Floyd said in their final song, everything we touch and everything we learn is in tune under the sun and the moon, right? And our reality, we are dumbed down. See, this big, thick dash line, they actually say that, and this is an interesting thing. I'm a little bit impaired here because I normally work on a different computer. We had to join with this one. But let me show you something. There's a mark that is believed to be right beneath our nose, and it's called, if I can find the doggone thing, where is it here? Let me see here. It's right underneath the nose, right there. It's called Cupid's bow. And they basically say that that's the mark to make us forget. They say when that may form in the womb, it may not. But I can tell you, we are knocked out when we draw first breath. And many people are psychic. Many people are intuitive. They can see other beings, disincarnate souls, spirits, and elementals. But for the most part, we don't. And the reason I believe we don't, and it might be a divine reason, they actually say in many ancient texts, if we were not dumbed down, we probably wouldn't function in this reality. If we saw all the angels and the spirits and see, like your dad is seeing all this stuff, it's very interesting because I'm about ready to interview a guy named Myron. He's pretty well known. Conan, he's a lot of people have said, and just like Skinwalker Ranch and stuff, there's portals, and certain individuals' consciousness starts to attract or connect in a psychic way these entities and beings. And so we are blocked. In fact, you could see right here, if anyone's been around the quote unquote Kabbalah, they'll have heard of the Sephiroth called Thoth. Thoth is the hidden Sephiroth. And it's also very connected to speech too. It's very interesting how the ability to communicate verbally is quite interesting. And this is the portal between what modern psychology would call our conscious and so-called subconscious mind. But notice right up here, the planet Saturn operates just up above what psychology would call our conscious mind. Well, notice the symbolism of astrology. And this is cool. I would love to point this out.
Kind of like a site.
If you look at all the glyphs of the planets come from the circle, which is the sun, the moon, which is the crucible, and the cross, which is spirit manifest. Wow. See, that's sunrise, noon, sunset, midnight. And it also rules the four archangels. And which is earth, air, fire, and water. Isn't that interesting? Wow. Well, all of the planetary glyphs come from the circle, which is the seed. See, the stars in the heavens may actually be portals. A lot of scientists are saying, well, they might not be fission. Maybe they're fusion. Maybe they're electric. Maybe they're plasma. Nobody knows. I don't know. I can tell you one thing that I do know is my opinion is they are portals from the extremely bright forces of creation shining down into the darker depths of material realms. And that's why they're so bright. And of course, the scientists are running around saying, well, it's all this spectra and different light, gamma rays, magnetics, this and that. Yeah, they're right. But I'll tell you what, I think there's a lot more coming through there than we even know how to even relate to, and let alone measure. We don't even know what's coming through there. And I think when you get into the realms of souls, spirits, and etheric energy is a great word. Etheric energy is one word of the fabric of the soul. And this is the tenets behind Vedic astrology. Let me show you something here that's really cool. There's another diagram I love. The Bhagavad
cut in really quickly, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
You're saying some stuff it's not just blowing my hair back. It's just downright shaving me bald. The beings indicated to my dad that they come from the sun, like a portal.
There you go. You bet. That's the one I was looking for. See, now many people will recognize this. This is the plate out of the Bhagavad Gita. And what you see here is this white etheric energy. Now, that's the stuff science cannot plug a meter into. They're never going to be able to put it on a scale and measure it. They can't quantify it. It's not molecules. It's not atoms. This is very sacred fabric of creation called spirit and soul. What is even thought? I mean, no one can measure thought.
Right.
You think about that. A computer can be programmed, or AI can be programmed to pick up a glass of water, but they do it because they're programmed. You do it because you're thirsty. You do it because you want to. See, free will and all this magic of spirit, psyche, and soul animates these physical bodies. And there's proof that it animates after death. This is what we call ghosts, or disincarnate souls and spirits. Right. And these all are believed we will end up in what they call Yetziratic or Asiatic worlds. They say we keep reincarnating here on the soul cauldron of earth until we purify and rectify the soul of the lower shells called klipos, which are intertwined with the evil spirits in the molecular worlds. And then we move on to other realms. And we may come back to other realms like Earth. I think there's a lot of places out there. This is deep stuff. We could talk about this all day.
I'm loving it.
Yeah.
That's why I asked if you liked Rosicrucianism, because one of the things that they believe is you are, like you say, it's a little bit differently the way they explain it, or the way I understood it, but it's like you're passing through the realms. It's like levels. It's like that's the cross, according to Rosicrucianism, is like the vertical line. It's like the y-axis. It's spirit. The horizontal line, like the x-axis. It's matter. And we are in the crossing place where spirit and matter are merged, or exactly like you say.
You got that right, my friend. Leonardo da Vinci had a great diagram showing the pentagrammation of spirit over matter. And it's clearly what it was. I don't know if I have that in here.
He was probably a Rosicrucian, or at very least involved in some sort of Grail tradition.
Yeah, could be. That I don't know, but I can tell you the 3 books of occult philosophy, which was given by Henry Cornelius Agrippa. You guys ever hear of Manly P. Hall?
Yes. Yeah. I have his book right here, The Secret Teaching of All Ages.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't finished it.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. I knew him. He died in the.
You knew him?
80s. Yeah. He started PRS, which is Philosophical Research Center. It's right over on Western Avenue, over by Griffith Park, where the Griffith Observatory is. Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean. Yeah, and I went in there in the 80s. He was pretty old then. He was a 32nd degree. No, he's a 33 degree. Mason. Honorary Mason, yeah.
He was never initiated, Nick, by the way, into Freemasonry. He was so knowledgeable that he was given an honorary initiation of the 33rd degree, and then he mysteriously died. It's
that was mysterious too.
They think the Masons might have got him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to that. That was somebody trying to steal the estate too. That was a chauffeur. But that was a long story short. But Manly P. Hall. The reason I brought him up is in the early 1900s, I think it was around, don't quote me, but I think it was around 1921, he gave a talk at a church in downtown Los Angeles. And somebody in the audience got very enamored with him and said, he's our guy. And you find this throughout history where these secret societies will have this entire corpus of knowledge that they want to get out to the public or save. This happened again with John Trithemis back in the 1400s with Henry Cornelius Agrippa, who wrote the 4 books of occult philosophy. Of course, most people know the 3, and other texts throughout history. This also happened. Yeah, and they want to save it. They want to save it. So Manly P. Hall was bequeathed a lot of information, and a lot of that came from the Rosicrucians.
Wow.
Because the Rosicrucian Society was very centered right down, I can't remember if it was in, it was down in Orange County, and I'm trying to think it might have been, it's escaping me, but it's down by Dana Point. That's where it is. And I'll think of it in a minute. But
I have to show you this really quick, Jeff. You see, I have The Secret Teaching of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. I bought this several years ago before I was even seriously into the occult. And I thought I was just going to read it in order like a regular book. I just saw my bookmark. I made it 34 pages in.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. Well,
it's like 1,000 pages of like very deep esoteric philosophy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
34
I'll show you as long as we're into it. This is the one Manly sold to me for $40. This is his Jubilee version.
Wow.
And,
is it The Secret Teaching?
Yeah. Actually, I might have got this one later. Yeah. That's The Secret Teaching. That's the original. I mean, look how big this thing is. It's huge.
Wow.
Yeah. And all the plates are in there, all the Egyptian stuff and the Kabbalistic stuff. Yeah. It's a really cool book. See, look at that.
It really, yeah. This is one of the most interesting occult books ever read. It covers like everything.
Oh my gosh, they gave him an honorary 33rd degree.
Yeah, he's cool.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, he was a big dude, man. I remember him. He's like a walking wall. He was pretty thin at the time, but yeah, he was big guy.
Yeah, giant's blood, huh?
He covers almost every esoteric philosophy you can imagine.
That alone, the fact that he was given an honorary 33rd degree, that alone makes me want to read that book.
Yeah,
it's cool. Well, I think he was bequeathed that information, not in any way to demean him. By the secret society. It's interesting. One of the astrologers for Ronald Reagan during not only Ronald Reagan's presidency, but also during his governorship of California in the 60s was a man named Carol Ryder. And Carol Ryder was a very famous astrologer to many Hollywood people. And of course, so was Manly P. Hall. And Robert Mitchum, I don't know if you guys, we were talking before the show about Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear movie with Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum.
Right.
Robert Mitchum used to be the chauffeur for Carol Ryder, who was later Ronald Reagan's astrologer. So,
wow.
History there.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Yeah, that's wild. That's a secret.
A lot of people may not know who Robert Mitchum is. You should check him out. He's a great actor. But yeah.
Really cool. I think I pulled up my book right before you were going to show us the Da Vinci. Did we get to the pentagram?
Oh, I don't see. I'm on a different computer, so I don't have that diagram here. But I can tell you, I might have it. Oh yeah, here it is. Here's another. Here's another one we can.
This is right there.
Yeah, if I can get it up there. See, this is a PowerPoint that I was working on. But again, this is Da Vinci's diagram where spirit is over matter.
Whoa.
And it's cool. And again, this gets into medical astrology. See, a lot of people think, astrology is just predicting the future. There's so many types of astrology. There's location astrology. There is medical astrology. There is interrogation astrology. What? See, interrogation astrology is really cool. That's literally asking questions about anything. It's literally a method to ask questions. And
really?
Yeah, you can even get when you're not going to get the answer. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But it's pretty wild stuff. But I would say, but keeping on point here, the coolest thing I wanted to pull up here was that all of the glyphs of the planets are combinations of the circle, which is the seed of creation or divinity coming down into the realms of creation. The moon is the crucible, and the cross is spiritual manifestation. Look at Saturn is karma. Why? Because it's the cross over the crescent of the moon, previously concretized energies that are now coming back to dissipate out. Jupiter is exactly the opposite. It is the crescent of the moon over the cross. That's why they call it the life force energy. Mars was the cross over the circle. And look at Venus, the sun over the cross, and Mercury's all three. It's the crescent of the moon over the sun over the cross. So what you end up with here is a system of creation, not just, your sun sign. And if you look at this particular diagram, which is even more interesting, if I can find it. Where did I put it here?
What do you mean by the crucible, the moon being the crucible? What does that mean?
Well, it's like the womb. It's like the soil of the earth. It's where it's the crucible. It's the alchemical nurturer of creation.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, it's one way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's like the masculine and the feminine, and then the cross is like the creation. It's where it manifests. It's the Trinity.
Right. Wow. It is, right.
See, I've never had this, because this is the tree of life, correct?
Well,
that's what we're looking at.
The symbols are alchemy.
Right.
Alchemical symbols.
So I've never had the alchemical symbols, the placement of the planets, and the Kabbalah all like cross-examined right in front of me.
Me either.
To say this is like blowing my hair back would be an understatement.
Oh, that's cool. I think it's how it is. Look at even the modern planets.
Scalping me.
Are common. Well, thank you for that. But don't thank me. Trust me, I'm just a messenger. I'm just a mailman. I'm just I'm just pointing out what creation is. You can see here. Look at the Uranus is the two crescents of the moon bent outwards with the cross in the middle over the sun. Look at Neptune is the crescent of the moon bent upwards over the cross, and Pluto is the sun over the crescent over the cross.
Wow.
See, so somebody was doing something besides Pisces loves Aries, you see. So this is way deeper. And again, the Nadi astrology really gets into the entire, you could say, message that we are spirit manifest. It's not just a bunch of signs and planets. It is a matrix that modulates the creative forces into the physical realms, which is Earth. And this is one place. And I believe there are many, many beings from different planets, different realms, different dimensions. And we're beginning to find that out. I mean, wonderful programs like, the Skinwalker Ranch, where you've got hard science saying there's stuff going on here we can't put our fingers on, And I was actually commissioned back, I think it was around 2010 or 2012. A gentleman, really good friend of mine, his name was George Parks. He's gone now. He passed away here a few years back. But George was the director of the original MUFON over in Tucson, Arizona. And he and Roger Scheer asked me, he said, Jeff, could you do a study on a lot of UFO phenomena? And of course, that goes way down the rabbit hole. I'm sure you guys have heard of Travis Walton and the Maelstrom Air Force Base. There was also the Allgash fishing abductions. There was the Shag Harbor crash. There was Betty and Barney Hill. Everybody's heard of them. And then there was the Minot Air Force Base. And we also had the Shipley or Snippy the Horse. That was another one. Travis Walton was really famous. And what George and Roger had me do is they wanted me to look and see, was there any celestial, of course we would call astrology, alignments that would correlate with some of these events. And I've actually done this with remote viewers a lot too. I've actually had a couple of different remote viewing groups, both in the States and in other places, have me examine why do they hit their targets at certain times and why they don't. And we found that celestial alignments, the rotation of the earth, the moon, especially the nodes of the moon, which is where eclipse points happen, and various different fixed stars have a huge effect on whether or not remote viewing is extremely lucid or not. And The other thing we found was UFO abductional phenomena seem to really, I mean, you'll never find the same events, but very powerful alignments were usually in play with these events. And most importantly, on the individual. I find a lot of individuals get abducted when they have certain cycles of Saturn, like Saturn could be transiting their moon, or it might be transiting their 12th house, or they may have strong and powerful Neptune aspects that are hard on the lights, meaning the sun and the moon. So that we found a lot of correlations, both in abductions, UFO phenomena, of course, now it's UAP, and also in events that would happen.
Well, that's very interesting because according to these charts I'm just seeing for the first time, Saturn represents the karmic reason for incarnation. Yep. So Saturn being significant in these UFO abductions, you know, what a lot of these abductions end up kind of being about, or what the people say after these abductions are that there's some like beings that are teaching them the purpose of incarnating into this world, right? I mean, at very least with, you know, Chris Bledsoe, like they're here to tell him the reason why we're here, the karmic reason, the purpose of our incarnation. So I was actually gonna ask, is there a planet or a number of planets that you see repeating? So it seems like Saturn is usually involved.
Oh yeah. See, in Nadi astrology, Nadi astrology looks at astrology completely different than almost anything I've seen in the West, and I love that. That's what really attracted me to it. I had a number of really good teachers. I had a number of not good teachers, but I also had some that were really just amazing. There was one old guy. He told me he used to do astrology for the Rothschilds in London.
Whoa.
And that these guys would never make moves, these bankers, unless it was good celestial energies. Here's a good example. COVID happened precisely on the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020, in January of 2020. Oh, yeah, like clockwork. And we also had a Kalasarpa Yoga, which means all the planets were in between the moon's nodes, all of them.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really heavy stuff. And then, you know, I look back through history, we could see alignments in World War I with Saturn and Pluto and Kalasarpas. We also saw throughout history, you know, I mean, the Roman Empire collapsed on a Pluto return on the Roman Empire. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. And right now, the United States is on the chopping block because it is going through a Pluto return. First time ever, because that only happens every 250 years. And how old is the United States? 247 years old. It's not exactly 250 either. We're actually sidereally having it in 2024, and it's 248th year.
Whoa.
That's I seem to remember the Pluto return. It started a few months ago, didn't it?
Well, the tropical happened in 221, but the sidereal's coming up 3 times this year, commencing all during the election year, and very powerful stuff. The United States is in grave danger right now, and it really is, of being destroyed as we know it. And I think this is a different type of destruction. It's clearly you could say, gutting of its infrastructure and rebuilding. And there's some very powerful forces happening on this. George Carlin might have been right. Forget the politicians. You have owners.
I did have one more question to ask you.
Wow.
If I remember correctly, I haven't actually seen it. But I know that you did an episode with my dad, and I know that you did some sort of astrology on, I don't know if you did it on his birthday or if you did it on the day of the river event. What do you remember any of the astrological readings?
Yeah. I remember what we had done is I looked at his birth chart, and I was looking at his location astrology. And see, I'm on a different computer. I can't show you that right now.
Oh, okay.
We had connection problems. But Yeah, I was showing him what they call his personal ley lines. They're called latitude crossings. Many people know them as parans in location. See, every single person will have very specific energy across the globe, specific to them, totally different for everybody. And it's based on your birth chart. It's like the soul is imprinted almost like a tuning fork, like a complex tuning fork, by the positions of all the celestial energies, including the angels on the eastern horizon, all these different angelic forces that are in the birth chart. Again, you can't get this from modern astrology. It's absolutely stunning. And long story short, I looked at your dad, and we found that he had the coolest line. He had a Neptune-Mars line. And I told him, I said, that line can be really difficult. It can be the twilight zone, but the positive side of that line is it's like a portal into the other dimensions. And look what he's doing. He's talking all these beings. He's got all these people. He's, all these crafts he's recording and orbs. So cool.
I wanted to just comment on that because this is the first time I will have said this like publicly, because it just happened like 3 or 4 days ago. But on Saturday, he went to a local festival here in North Carolina. There's about 75 people that showed up. It wasn't a big event. It was more of a local thing, and Dad put it out there on the internet to advertise, And by the end of the night, there were 50 or 60 people there, and sure enough, they all saw orbs. They had it was a small mass sighting, but it's the biggest one yet. And
he's like a conduit.
Yeah, and I just see it going. I mean, the biggest crowd before that was probably 20. Now we're talking 50 or 60 people at one time seeing orbs. I mean, what's next? 100, and then it'll be 1,000. And to talk about what we were talking about earlier, real quick. This is the last thing I'm gonna say. Then I'll quit ranting everybody's head off.
No, go ahead. You talk. It's your show. You talk all you want.
I feel like it's leading up to that. I think although I don't like to leave people feeling doom and gloom. I think although out there in the world, by the people who own the media and own, the news and own these social media apps that we browse for fun and we think they're completely organic, but they're not. The people that own these, they're going to do everything they can in their power to make it look so bad everywhere we turn in the world, because why? The question is why? Well, because we're awakening. I believe we're approaching a time where awakening will be possible for everybody, for the whole realm, astrologically speaking, like the age of Aquarius. And I do tend to think that it's going to I think that there could be some sort of mass sighting thing. I think there's going to be the possibility of over the next few years, the whole world will get to see the phenomenon in some way. Whether it's extremely vivid on video or everybody will be able to see it, I don't know, but I feel it more than ever, and that's all I'm going to say. I wanted to leave it positive. But
yeah. Well, that's what I get. We're going down the rabbit hole here. It's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but we're likely to come out of this. There's all these dark Agenda 230s and all this horrible stuff that's being predicted. And, I got to tell you, I'll never forget, because I think I'm about a little bit older than your dad, but I came out in 1977. A friend of mine owned a theater, and he said, Jeff, you got to come see this movie. So I went into the theater, right? It was a Late Great Planet Earth. You guys can look this up. Late Great Planet Earth, narrated by Orson Welles. Orson Welles, very famous, did, War of the Worlds, all that stuff. And I sat there and I watched this movie. And of course, it was interpretations of Nostradamus quatrains, and the person who interpreted it, they absolutely had everyone in the theater, including me at the time, convinced that that was it. We were not going to live past 1985, right? 1,000-mile-an-hour winds, axis tips, atomizing cities, nuclear war. And if that doesn't get you, it's going to be earthquakes. It's going to be this, going to be that. And none of it happened. None of it happened. And this is,
that's my whole point.
It's a big psyops. And just like 2012, everybody, I remember I was on Coast to Coast. Jeff, what do you think of the Mayan calendar? I said, not a single thing. I said, I can't come up with anything for the Mayan calendar. There's just nothing there, and nothing happened. Nothing. Yeah. Now, some people argue with me and say, well, this happened, that. Well, there's always something happening, but nothing major happened.
We're still
not
here.
Like a 9/11, not like that. And what's interesting is I said, watch out for 220. 220 looked like the trigger point, and it was. 220, we just had something happen. Two things. One was the COVID, but that's not just COVID. COVID, I don't want to get into the conspiracy, but it was engineered, in my opinion. It was absolutely made to happen. They knew it, they timed it, and it worked.
Well, they're saying that now.
Oh,
the people from the White House are saying that. It's just,
you don't need a brick to fall on your head to figure out. I mean, we were lied to, no doubt. Your reality becomes what you believe. There's no reality. There's only belief and perception. Then you create your reality. There's a common reality, but clearly everyone creates a reality. And going back to this whole thing with, 2020, there was a 240-year cycle that happened, and most astrologers don't agree with me on this. A lot of them are sidereal, a lot of them are tropical. That's the difference between Vedic and tropical astrology. Anyways, long story short, George Washington and the Masons formed this country very close, not exactly, but close to a great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in a fire trine. And that only happens about once every 1,000 years. And then every 240 years, not exactly, but approximately, you get what they call a mutation conjunction. These go all the way back to the flood of Noah and possibly farther. But they show when the ebbs and flows and changes in society happen. And we just had one on the winter solstice of 2020. And that was a great conjunction in an air trine. And everybody's running around saying, oh, we're in the age of Aquarius. I don't believe that. I don't think we're going to hit Aquarius technically, and I could be wrong, until when the Hebrew calendar runs out, right around 6,000 might be when, but we're getting there. And see, now we're getting close to the cusp, and awakening is happening. I think awakening's happening on every soul at different points in incarnations. But we are in a high-tech era now, unlike we've not seen in any recorded history that we know of anyhow. I do believe the Tartarians are probably right. Free energy has been thwarted and suppressed, and advanced technologies that have been around for a long time. And it keeps getting suppressed. By whom? Well, that fourth hierarchy we just saw. And, you look at communism and you look at the totalitarian forces that have always existed on this planet. Look at Mao might have killed, they don't know. Mao could have killed up to 75 to 100 million people. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Not a nice guy. Same thing with Lenin, same thing with Stalin, of course, we know about Hitler, 6 million plus. So clearly the world has seen this forever. The demonic forces come in and they're always trying to destroy humanity and creation, but it never works because divinity, if you look at that diagram, divinity is above. They are actually incarcerating these evil spirits, and there's no way out. They are always going to be there. I don't know why. Yeah. Oh, there it goes. Okay, there we go. I mean, if you look at this diagram, I love this diagram because if we're down here in the myopic perception of physical time and reality, there is no time. I mean, think about time. What is time? The rotation of the earth, or if you're a flat earth or whatever, it's the cycle of the sun, right? So the bottom line is, if you took us out of this celestial mechanics, which happens right when we all exit the body known as death, there's no time. There's no time. So time, it works on the physical realm in these physical bodies, but it does not on spirit, psyche, and soul. And what's fascinating about all this is, and where I'm going with this, is the upper angelic forces hold these evil forces in abeyance. And they're pissed at humanity and creation because they can't get out. And that's why I think they forever try to destroy.
That's deep. That's really deep. I really like that.
Well, because
I've heard that. I've heard that in other ways described.
Here's the other interesting thing. See, and here's another diagram to ponder here. And this one is quite interesting because there's something known as the precession of the equinoxes. See, we're believed to go around a central sun about every 25,700 something odd years. No one knows. There's all kinds of people out there saying, well, this is the exact time. I don't know, but it's about that. See, our solar system, they say, might be rocketing around the central sun somewhere around 500 million miles an hour. It's like 480 or 490,000, according to some experts. And they might be right. They say it's so fast that the planets are actually spiraling behind the sun. And the interesting thing is that's just this. These are called the great years. And, you know, the age of Aquarius will happen when the solar system enters the sidereal sign of Aquarius. And there's no mile marker out there that says you've just entered Aquarius. You know, I mean, it's not there. It's no 7-Eleven, you know, gas station or anything else. It's like we don't know exactly when that happens. But see, the Vedic and Nadi astrologers called them yugas. They not only do you have, like, there's Kali Yuga, Tetra Yuga, there's all these different yugas and sub-yugas that no one really knows where we are. And I've looked at this stuff for years, and I've come to the conclusion nobody knows. But we might be in a Kali Yuga coming out of it in a Tetra subcycle, which, you know, again, this is all debatable. But here's the point. We do seem to have been in a dark age of materialism for quite a while. Yeah. And we might be emerging in a couple 100 years.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to describe the current state of the world, a dark age of materialism. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. But I think it'll be much sooner. I have a lot of hope, you know.
I think it could be instant for anyone who becomes consciously self-aware. And I think it happens. You know, people go crazy in congregations. They only get better one by one.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Dang, Jeff, you are a very interesting guy. I'm very glad that Dad connected us. I think that's a very good stopping point for now, because my head is still turning on an hour ago.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest. So I know we've already dropped it in there, but just in case people are here at the end and they've forgotten, please, one more time, what is the name of your show and the name of your website?
Yeah, my website is jeff@jeffharman.com, and you can check out my YouTube channel too, because there's a lot of really good stuff on there. It's Jeff Harman Astrologer, Jeff Harman Vedic Astrologer. You'll see it on the YouTube. It's HARMAN. But yeah, if you check out the YouTube channel, it's a lot of fun because we go into many, many different things on the YouTube channel and a lot of different topic points, etc. So very, very powerful.
Everybody out there, check it out. I know every person that listened to this episode is loving Mr. Jeff Harman. So y'all know what to do. Get over to that YouTube channel. I'm about to do it right now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, my head is spinning. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
You bet. My honor, you guys. My honor, and many blessings to you and your dad. I mean, I love your dad. He's such a great soul. I just really love Chris.
I really appreciate that, Jeff. Yeah. I don't know how this will happen, but at some point we have to meet in person.
Oh, by all means. I'm sure we will. We'll meet at some convention or some show or something. So
awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to the Conscious Life Expo. I think I'm speaking at that this January. So yeah.
Where is that?
That's out here in Los Angeles. I forget exactly where. It might be at the Staples Center someplace, but all kinds of people are going to be there. George Norrie, Jimmy Church, you know, all kinds of talkers, you know.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, be cool stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. I wonder if I don't know if Dad'll go, but anyway,
he probably will. He should. He should.
He should be invited. But yeah, so we have a cheesy little tradition. We just say bye, guys, at the same time. So you ready?
We're just gonna say bye.
We're gonna count down, and we're literally just gonna say bye, guys. It's that simple. We just like doing it. All right. There's nothing esoteric about it. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more, check out our other videos.
And before you go, don't forget to subscribe. See you next week. Peace.